Hey friends, in today's video I want to talk to you about two of my favorite cameras ever, the two budget medium format options available on the market for enthusiast medium format shooters, the 50R, Fuji 50R, and the Hasselblad X1D II. Guys, I love these two cameras and I just feel very fortunate to having been able to shoot with both of these for a while now, and I'm really excited to be able to make a lot of videos in the near future about both of these systems. But before I launch into my comparison, I do want to address the elephant in the room for followers of the channel. It has been almost a month since we've posted anything to the channel, and there are some really good reasons for that. I always struggle though to know how personal to get with these videos. But I know that a lot of you do care about what's going on in the life of DENAE and Andrew. And if that's you, do consider joining the channel to become a supporter. Heaven knows that we'd appreciate the support, but even more than that, that gives us a place to connect with you on a more personal level and share with you what the heck has been going on. But I realize that most viewers don't really care about that. You just want to get the hard facts about these cameras. So let's dive into that right now. The first thing I think worth mentioning is that these cameras are very similar in lots of ways, and either could serve you well if you want all of the things that a medium format can get you, things like wider depth of field for shadow and highlight recovery, lenses with more resolving power combined with higher megapixel sensor to maximize details and provide you with just tons of options when it comes to creative cropping, but also just better low light performance. And let's not forget, for many of you, the most important reason, the shallowest of shallow depths of field for those of you who just want to obliterate the backgrounds in your photos. Both of these cameras can get you all of those things, and they have a lot of similarities. For instance, they both utilize that same 50 megapixel sensor, and even though the Fuji X cameras use the X-Trans style filter array on their sensors, not so with the GFX sensors. They utilize the traditional Bayer filter, which is the same filter array that the Hasselblad and really almost all cameras utilize. So in that sense, they're very similar. Both of these cameras also utilize 117 focus points, and the screens of both of these have the same number of dots, although the screen on the X1D is slightly larger. Both LCDs have touch screens, and both cameras weigh roughly the same at about 27 ounces, and the EVFs of both of these are the same resolution. But most important for me is that both of these cameras allow me to get my favorite type of photography with my favorite in-camera resolution setting. That is the 65:24 panoramic aspect ratio that was made famous by the original Hasselblad X1D film camera. For me, this is the single biggest draw to either of these cameras and systems, and what gets me excited to go out shooting with them in spite of some of the limitations of the systems, including the way that both of them struggle with continuous shooting with only a 3-second burst with the 50R and a 2.7 second burst with the X1D II. That does make them challenging for my other great photography love, documentary style photography, but I love the format enough that I still use these devices even for documentary style photography on occasion. But the toughest part for me about comparing these two cameras is knowing that I will have to eventually choose one or the other. While I do own this 50R, I have not yet been able to afford any of the native lenses. Well, I should say I did own a couple of them, but I had to sell them. So for now, I'm just adapting. You'll see that we've got a Mamiya lens on here now, and that's what I'm using more affordable. They're still expensive, but they're way more affordable than the native GF lenses. And the Hasselblad is not mine. This is on loan to me by Hasselblad. I'm working on a video that will come out soon that I'm really excited about. I'll tell you more about that at the end of the video for those who are interested, but I've had it for a while now and I've just thoroughly enjoyed shooting with it. And if price is a concern for you like it is for me, then that's probably the first difference worth mentioning. The Hasselblad X1D II currently retails for $5,750, whereas the GFX 50R comes in at $4,500. That's a $1,200 price difference, and it gets even worse when you consider the used market. It's much easier, although it's not easiest, but it is easier to find a lightly used copy of the 50R used than it is the X1D II, making it even easier for us budget-conscious enthusiasts to get into medium format on Fuji than it would be on Hasselblad. So part of this comparison is trying to figure out if there's enough advantages with the Hasselblad X1D II to justify that $1,200 minimum price difference between the two. For many enthusiasts, it will not be, but there are some very compelling advantages with the X1D II that might swing the balance in favor for some of you, depending on your priority. And one of those is that it's got a leaf shutter style system, meaning that there is no shutter mechanism here on the camera body, which is why the X1D II profile can be so slim and sleek. There is no focal plane shutter in the body. It's right here in the lens. This is advantageous in a couple ways, depending on who you are. For one, the leaf shutter is softer and smoother, meaning you'll get less camera movement and theoretically sharper images as a result. Second, it makes for a quieter shutter. Again, theoretically though, in my experience, the leaf shutter on this Hasselblad, it's actually kind of loud. Here are the two shutter sounds in comparison. The GFX sounds more chunky. It sounds like the camera looks in my mind, whereas the Hasselblad has sort of a tinny sound. Sounds kind of steampunk to me. I'm not really sure why steampunk was the first thing I thought of, but there it is. But probably the biggest advantage is with the leaf shutter is that it gives you higher flash sync speeds. So for you studio, strobe, or flash photographers looking at one of these as your entry point into medium format, the X1D II becomes a gateway drug, providing you access to shutter speeds of up to 1/2000th of a second with any old strobe, whereas the GFX 50R is going to give you a not very impressive maximum flash sync speed of 1/25th of a second, which any studio guy will tell you is not great and will certainly not be sufficient. But there are some drawbacks to the leaf shutter for those of you who are not studio photographers but are more interested in more documentary style work or landscape or whatever. A focal plane shutter will give you more access to faster shutter speeds. The Hasselblad X1D II can only get you 1/2000th maximum shutter speed in general, whereas the 50R is going to get you 1/4000th of a second. But when it comes to maximum shutter speeds, the 50R's advantage doesn't just end there. If you switch to electronic shutter, you'll gain access to 8/1000th of a second. If you're shooting outside on a very sunny day and you want an extremely shallow depth of field, you will feel that difference painfully. The Hasselblad X1D II, I found myself having to close that aperture down much further than I normally would, which isn't an issue at all with the 50R because of those faster shutter speeds. But that's not all. There's also another advantage that the 50R has over the Hasselblad X1D II, again for you enthusiast photographers mostly, and that is when you consider adapting lenses. If you, like me, enjoy adapting lenses, or you just want to get into the system without breaking the bank but still have some decent glass, then adapting lenses really becomes crucial for when you're just starting out in that system. It's very common to wait till you can afford those more expensive lenses. And with the 50R, because it has that focal plane shutter, that works great. But the Hasselblad, while you still can adapt on this camera, the thing to keep in mind and remember is that the shutter is in the lenses. So when you don't have the shutter, you have to rely on the electronic shutter of the body only. And the other disadvantage is if you're shooting in like indoor lighting, tungsten, or what's it called, incandescent, or whatever type of not very great lighting. With the refresh rates of those, it will create banding often with your electronic shutter, and so that's not going to work for you if you're ever shooting indoor. You will have it happen. You will lose shots. They will look horrible. So just keep that in mind if adapting lenses is something that's going to be important to you. But having said all that, there are 3 things I absolutely adore about the X1D II that keep me dreaming about shooting with it when I'm not with it, and keep me dreading the day that I'll have to send it back to Hasselblad. And the first thing is the color, straight out of camera. Now, I will be the first to tell you that you should not get too caught up in color if you shoot RAW and if you do a lot of post-processing, because generally you'll be able to get the type of color you want out of any system. As an example, I really love shooting in classic chrome profile on Fuji, but I tend to warm it up a bit and make some small tweaks. See my 2 videos about classic chrome and my Kodachrome flavored version in the links above or in the description. But when I shoot RAW on the X1D, I've been able to create a profile that matches it very well. So if you shoot RAW again, it doesn't matter too much, but the more experienced I get as a photographer, the more I find myself working much harder to get things the way I want in camera, and the less I tend to post-process anything. And for me, that means JPEG. And as much as I do love the Fuji color philosophy and all those wonderful filmic profiles, there's only one straight out of camera in standard mode system I've ever caught my breath repeatedly what I've seen right out of camera, and they've all come out of the Hasselblad X1D. It doesn't happen every time and not with every shot, but every now and then I'll pull up an unedited JPEG from this camera and honestly feel that there is nothing I would change about it, that the colors do the scene complete justice and just fill me with joy. Now again, I know that this is highly subjective, but this is my review, and I feel like I was missing out on part of the magic of the system if I didn't mention the suite of emotions that I've experienced when shooting with the X1D II, and that really is one of the biggest reasons that I keep coming back to it. But color aside, there is one other thing about this camera over the GFX 50R that I absolutely love, and that is the way that it feels. Now I realize that the design of the X1D is polarizing. For some, it's not classic enough. It pushes the envelope too much. But with the chassis that was milled out of that single block of aluminum, and with that beautiful firm, awesome grip that no other camera design in the world has nailed like this camera has, because they can't get that slim profile with that big juicy grip. It just makes it absolutely a joy to hold and keep with you and use. It just makes me want to hold it all the time. I also like that big orange button. Kind of looks like a toy. A lot of people don't like it, but it does appeal to me. And even when it comes to the digital interface, it is beautiful and well thought through. It's highly customizable and polished, and you can tell that the UI designer spent as much time crafting the experience as the product designers spent crafting the exterior. And as a product designer myself, I very much appreciate that. While Fuji has a much more deep menu, of course, with more settings and functions than Hasselblad will ever have, it does lack that elegance. It's purely functional, as is the body design. And this is the part of the experience that perplexes me about Fuji, who has crafted some of the most beautiful modern cameras of all time. How did they arrive at this uninspired brick? For me, I've never been extremely picky about a grip, but in this case I have to, because I feel like it's a heavy camera compared to most full frame or other high megapixel count cameras, but when you add to that heavy lenses, it becomes quite the package, but the grip becomes inadequate. There's not enough to hold on to, and for someone like me with not great wrists, I have to hold it tighter than I want to, and it's not ideal, which is why I have this. Now, I have never been one for half cases, but with the 50R, I feel like it's essential to give it the proper grip that it needs. This case was given to me by Kenji at kenjileather.com, and I'm extremely grateful to Kenji for it, because without it, I can tell you I'd be much less enthusiastic about picking up and shooting this camera for any extended amount of time. I will put a link to Kenji's website below. He makes some beautiful custom products for Fuji, Leica, and many other cameras, and if you're gonna get the 50R, this is absolutely essential in my opinion. But where I wish I could say that the ergonomics and usability of the X1D is perfect, that is where the advantages largely end, unfortunately. The first big problem with the X1D II is just turning it on and off. The X1D II utilizes a power button, which I really hate. You have to hold it down for a half a second to get it to turn on and off. And because it takes nearly 5 seconds for the X1D II to start up, sometimes you're not really sure if you had the power button down long enough. And often I've already pressed it again when I see that logo appear. That H logo takes a second to appear. So sometimes I push it again thinking I hadn't hit it, which makes it turn off again by the time it turns on. That means that it takes sometimes up to 10 seconds before I have this booted up and ready to go. That's unacceptable. It's just a horrible, horrible experience. Especially when you have kids and you're trying to capture their activity with this device. And while I'd never call the 50R the fastest draw in the West, with a toggle switch on and off button, you always know where you stand with it. If it's on, you know. Not only that, but it just starts up much more quickly at about a second, which enables me to come away with a lot more keepers when I'm out with the family or really just doing anything. The next issue I have is with the LCD. Now I can forgive Hasselblad for not having that flip screen like the 50R has. It is nice to have a flip screen, but for me, I could live without it to shoot with a camera like this. I do appreciate the minimal and slim design that would have to be sacrificed to a degree if they had a flippy screen. So I can appreciate that why they didn't add it. But what I can't forgive is an LCD that's not responsive enough. This screen has plenty of resolution, and the design, like I said, is wonderful, but it doesn't always detect my finger, and that is a huge problem if we're relying on no joystick. If there is no joystick, and there is no joystick on this body. The GFX has a joystick, a little tiny one, which is not wonderful. It's actually pretty horrible. I don't know why it's so puny and diminutive. I wish that they would take some notes from Nikon, who has the best joysticks on the market in my opinion, but at least it has one. The X1D II relies on touch to change the focus points and touch and drag focus when your eye is up to the viewfinder. This is where just a certain area of the screen is dedicated to changing focus in a relative way. So you can just use the right side of the LCD screen to change focus. And in theory, that's wonderful, and I've used that in many systems and love it. But again, the LCD is I don't know, the capacitive response is just, I don't know the terms, but it's not responsive enough. And it misses what I'm doing, and it causes me to miss shots. The other issue with relying on touch and drag only is that if you shoot vertically this way, it's not a problem this way, but if you shoot vertically this way like I do, the nose can interfere with the focus as well. So that's a challenge. The next thing that helps give the 50R the advantage and another win is the ability to change ISO. There are enough dials on the 50R that you can change aperture, shutter, and ISO all with a dedicated dial. With the X1D II, this is not possible. There's an ISO button and only 2 dials for shutter and aperture. And in the modern world, where we no longer have to treat ISO like something we set once for a whole session, but rather something that you can change throughout a session that's just as viable and I guess legitimate a way to change exposure value as shutter or aperture, and something that I personally change all the time. To have it buried behind a menu or a button, to me is wrong, and I feel like those days should be past us. We now should live in a time where there should be 3 dials on every camera. That's just how I feel anyway. As it is right now, I don't enjoy having to press a button to change ISO on this camera. The next usability issue I have relates to back to shutter. I already mentioned the responsiveness difference between the 2 cameras with the touchscreen and the continuous shooting, but even the single shooting mode, the other thing you have to contend with is screen blackout. The screen blacks out on the X1D for almost 2 seconds, whereas the 50R only blacks out for about a second. This may not sound like a huge difference, but when you're trying to photograph anything with movement, in my case, an active family, like I said, you definitely feel these differences. But guys, that's it as far as my in-depth comparison and contrast of these two cameras. I still have a few more weeks with the X1D II, which I'm excited about. Hasselblad has been swapping out lenses every few weeks, so I can make an in-depth lens review video, which I have just been completely geeking out, researching and gathering photos for. I'm really looking forward to sharing that in-depth video with you. But as to which of these two systems that eventually I think I'll stick with, honestly guys, I'll probably continue to toe the line until future versions. I don't think that either of these bodies are quite there. In the case of the GFX 100, to me that's a great camera, but that's not the medium format camera for me. I'm hoping we see a 100R that's true to the spirit of this design, but with some improvements, say the grip and some other things. Really hoping to see that. And with the X1D II, I see so much potential in this design. I really hope to see some of these improvements that I've mentioned in future versions. But in the meantime, I'm in no hurry to pick a winner. But that's all I have for you today, guys. Remember to do some good with your cameras, and we will talk to you again real soon.